So today I thought I'd come back down here and clean up a little bit more of this area that's blocking the sun to my corn garden. So today I thought I'd come back down here and clean this up some more. I don't have a lot left to do. I just got some small saplings that really should come down pretty easy. And then I got a twin cedar tree, meaning there's two cedar trees growing up right next to each other. That might be a bit of a challenge simply because the limbs get bound into each other. So what I think I'll do is I'll cut down the smaller one first and just let it stand there. It doesn't have to do anything. And then I'll cut the bigger one down. That way they both can come down at the same time. And I cut this cedar tree down right here. It's a cedar tree. Cedar trees usually aren't a problem. They're light, they're easy to deal with. But this one really gave me a lot of trouble. So what happened was I'm cutting, and I got my wedge cut right here. Now, in order to do a wedge cut, you're supposed to do a face cut or a wedge cut. That way, you kind of give it an off-balance leaning the direction that you want it to fall. You can see I actually had to cut two wedges because I got in such trouble with this thing that I had to do it over. It was a mess. What happened was I guess the fence here got bound up with the limbs. You can see the limbs there on the other side. When I was cutting the back cut, so just so it would fall over, the cedar tree fell down onto my blade. It pinched the blade. I couldn't get it out. So I had to take wedges here, and I wedged the cedar tree up high enough to get the chainsaw out. And that's a pretty standard practice. You're supposed to do that when you're cutting big trees. This one's not a big tree. Cedar tree's just never been a trouble for me. These branches just got tied up in this fence so bad. I think it just kind of springed back on it, and I didn't expect it. That just goes to show you that you can't ever be too careful using a chainsaw or cutting down trees. I got lackadaisical, and sure enough, it came back and pinched me. Literally pinched this chainsaw. Even if I'd have really studied this tree, I don't know if I really would have paid attention to that fence causing me a problem. Typically, the things I have problems with is these grapevines. They grow up into the trees, and that hangs them up. I never expected this fence to hang it up, but you can tell that cedar tree there, it has pulled everything over. I mean, it hasn't just pulled the fence post over, it bent the fence post over. A lesson learned. I mean, it was a good lesson to learn. And fortunately, I learned it with a cedar tree, something that's easy to manipulate. But I couldn't get it to go over just by pulling on it. And the wedges wouldn't. That was what was funny, is when I put the wedges in, I used all three. I got 3 wedges, and the wedges would not push it over. The reason I talk about this is I just want to caution you that when you're cutting down trees, expect the worst all the time. Make sure your path is clear when you're cutting. That way you can get out of the way if something goes wrong. So as I was cutting the branches off the cedar tree, the chain was probably loose on my chainsaw, and I threw the chain on the chainsaw again. So I gotta go put that on real quick. So a few days ago, I showed you that I tore up my chainsaw bar. What happened was I was down there and a branch got twisted into the bar, in between the bar and the chain, and it split open the bar, bent the bar. So I had to buy a new bar and I didn't have to buy a new chain, but I went ahead and replaced the chain. And that cost 20 bucks for the bar and chain, so I didn't think that was too bad. I tell you, this little job, that should be so easy, is really taking a toll on this little cheap chainsaw. I've used this chainsaw for 2 years, and it's done a fantastic job. Been really proud of it. That's why I buy cheap chainsaws. That way I can go down and I can tear them up if I need to. But it's done real good. It's a little Home Depot thing. So a few days ago I made a video and I showed you how to change out the bar and put on a new chain, the whole thing. So if you go check out that video, I'll put a link at the end of this video. It'll be on the screen. All you gotta do is hit the box that pops up with the thumbnail, and it'll take you to the next video. It'll teach you how to put a bar on the chainsaw, and it also helps out the algorithm to know that you like this video so much that you went ahead and watched another video, and that helps promote this video even better. I'd really appreciate it. Okay, so I'm going to change this out real quick. I'm not going to spend a lot of time showing you how to do it, since you're going to watch that other video. Well, I just noticed something. I must not tighten my bolts here on my chainsaw, which might be part of the reason why it threw the chain. All right, so I'm back down here. This is the cedar tree I cut down just the other day. I'm going to start cutting these little saplings down right here. But the one thing, like I said earlier, you need to make sure that you always have your area cleaned out so you can walk around. Let me imagine tripping over this branch here. and landing right on your chainsaw in full blast. So just kind of clean it up. If there's weeds that have grown up, cut those down with your chainsaw. It's exciting to get on the chainsaw, and I see people do it all the time. They'll get on the chainsaw and they start it up and they start cutting, and they've broken 20 safety rules in the first few seconds. It's like a teenage kid, I guess, getting in their car first time and just running off, and it's exciting, but you're gonna get hurt. It only takes a split second. My dad has to be the safest person I know with a chainsaw, and he came down on his toe and cut his shoelace actually. He said that was a valuable lesson, and that was his one get out of jail free card that he got. It happens to the best of everybody. So if you're not very experienced on them, man, take your time. Don't get too big of a hurry. That chain runs around there at 45 miles an hour, so I've been told. It just takes a second and you won't even know it. Watched a video from Wrangler Star. I watched a video from Wrangler Star one time. It was one of his older videos. He had a pair of chaps on, chainsaw chaps. He'd been cutting and his chainsaw died and he didn't know why, and he set it down for a second. A few seconds later he tried to start it back up. It wouldn't start. Chain was all bound up on something, so he tore it apart. All the fibers from the chainsaw chap had wrapped around there. He didn't even know he hit his leg. So it can happen to the best of anybody. So now I got a little bit of space I can walk around. I'll cut this grapevine here, get that out of the way. That way I can walk around. Now, one thing I see a lot of people try to do, start the chainsaw with them holding it. You really should start it on the ground with your foot on the handle. That way, if you are trying to pull it and it starts and you come up with it, you won't hit yourself in the head. Cut your head open. The biggest problem is this microphone cord is always in the way. Right there was a perfect example. You saw me get back from that, and sure enough, this came up. If I'd have been on top of it when I was pushing it, if I'd have stayed in place, this would have hit me in the face. So a perfect example of everything, even these little things, are extremely dangerous. Okay, so what I've got here is I've already got this one cut, and what I did was I just kept cutting and cutting different, a little higher, a little higher, a little higher. That way, when it sat down, I could still get my saw out. I've wedged this one, so now I'm going to come in on this side, on the other side, and it should fall over towards me. Of course, I'm going to be on the other side. Okay, so right there is the garden. You should be able to see it. It's right there. So now I can see the complete other side of our property from the garden. That cedar tree that went down pretty smooth. It did exactly what I wanted to do. You can see the bottom one here just fell right over in line. The hinge on this worked perfectly. I had to cut the hinge off. It didn't completely detach, which was fine. So it was a controlled fall. That was a perfect felling of a tree. I'm really proud of that one. So I'm sitting here bragging to myself, that was a perfect one. Yeah, I'm sure some professionals are going to say, no, that wasn't perfect at all. So now the sun should hit the corn garden all the way through. I might clean some of this up right over here. This tree here I got to clean off, obviously, but I think I'm going to leave the rest of it as is. That way it gives us a barrier from the neighbor's house or neighbor's yard and our yard. I think they like the privacy as much as I do. Of course, we still got the easement that we have to keep clear, but that's just what it is. So now what I'll do is I'll just come down an hour every 3 or 4 days. Sorry about the sun direction. That's not going to work too well. I'm not working too hard, just a little piece here or there. Maybe, you know, cut up one of the trees I got laying here, drag it out, because it's a big old mess. Now, somebody asked me why don't I burn it, and the reason is I have a generator that runs a well pump. The generator can die at any given moment. So if I'm in the middle of a big old burn and I need water and the generator dies and I can't get it to start for whatever reason, I have no water. I could hook it up to solar, but that's assuming, you know, it's a clear day. I guess you would have to do it on a clear day if you're going to use solar, but it's not going to give you a ton of water on solar. So I'm not going to burn it just because I don't have the water source, and I am not going to call the fire department. I'm independent. I'm going to stay that way as much as possible. Now, somebody suggested do a controlled burn. Well, that's great. Yeah, do a controlled burn until it gets out of control. And secondly is I want the firewood out of this. Of course, I don't want the firewood out of the cedar, but the cedar I can make pole barns out of. They don't rot. I've talked about that in previous videos. So a few days ago I made a video and I showed you how to change out the bar and put on a new chain and the whole thing. So if you go check out that video, I'll put a link at the end of this video. It'll be on the screen. All you gotta do is hit the box that pops up with the thumbnail. I hope I can inspire you to take little bites out of your dream. Thanks for watching.